Hey everyone, Big Paulie back for a brand new video. Yes, back for something a little bit different. No unboxings today, no Blu-ray hunting. But today I thought I'd share my 5 most disappointing movie sequels. They're the original films of these I really enjoyed. And some of them are in my top 10 greatest movies of all time. So yeah, let's get going. There's also a honourable mention. Here we go. Top 5 most disappointing sequels. Okay, first of all, the honourable mention. Yes, this just comes outside of my top 5. It does have entertaining scenes, some entertaining scenes. Most of the original cast return, but one cast member is actually absent, and I think this really harmed the film. And it is The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor. I love the first 2 films, absolutely adore them, even though we've got some really ropey Dwayne Johnson CGI as the Scorpion King, which I wished one day they'd remaster and just redo it. But yes, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor also stars Jet Li, which I think was a great addition to the series. We've got Brendan Fraser back as Rick O'Connell. We also have John Hannah back as Jonathan. And Rick and Evie's son is now grown up and is part of the main storyline. Talking of Evie, Rachel Weisz was fantastic in the first 2 films. They had a real connection. You believed their relationship. You believed in the chemistry. And unfortunately, Rachel Weisz didn't come back for the 3rd film. Instead, we got Maria Bello, I think her name is. And there was no chemistry at all between these 2 characters. Most of the film, I didn't even look at her as Evie. So yeah, it was very disappointing, and I think it really harmed the movie. I think what they should have done was just say that Evie's off on some Egyptian book club or something, or some archaeological dig, and keep the main focus on Rick, Jonathan and the son as well. So I think that did harm the movie. As much as I love the first 2 Mummy movies, it does have entertaining scenes, but it's not a brilliant Mummy movie. But I do prefer it over the Tom Cruise one anyway. So that is the honourable mention, The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor. Okay, so my number 5th spot. Yes, 5th spot goes to Starship Troopers 2, Hero of the Federation. Now, why is he holding up Starship Troopers? For the simple fact, I don't own Starship Troopers 2, Hero of the Federation. I have watched the sequels. I didn't really like any of them. Marauder was... even though, you know, we eventually had the return of Johnny Rico, played by Casper Van Dien. This film is classic. This film is fantastic. It's goofy, it's violent, there's gore in it, and there's so much comedy in it. We have Jake Busey, we have Neil Patrick Harris, we have the lovely Denise Richards. And yeah, this is just an all-round fantastic film. The music is incredible, the special effects are fantastic. The crash scenes, I could go on. So when it came to the sequel, I had high hopes. None of the cast, I don't think any of the cast returned for the sequel. The thing about the sequel is it's kind of like self-contained in this like little outpost, and it's so dark. It's so dark that you can't see anything. We're missing all of the action, all of the excitement. If you watch the trailer for Starship Troopers 2, a lot of the scenes they show are from the first film, which is very misleading. But I really didn't like Hero of the Federation. It's a poor Starship Troopers sequel, and I'm just really not bothered about it. This is the only Starship Troopers that matters. Okay, so what's in fourth place on my list of most disappointing sequels? A Good Day to Die Hard. Yes, John McClane is back, together with his son Jack, played by Jai Courtney. And again, talking of trailers, you watch the original trailer for this. This film looks incredible. This film could blow the original Die Hard away. So action-packed, but misleading as well, because there was a lot of dialogue in the trailer that never made it into the film. Now, the original cut of this, I think when this arrived at the cinema, it was dumbed down to like a 12A or a PG-13. They cut out a lot of swear words. You know, they cut out a lot of use of the F word, the MF word. And I think they even messed about with the yippee-ki-yay at the end of the movie. The problem with this film is Jai Courtney is okay in some things. I think he was terribly miscast in this film. They could have had a better actor playing Jack. Someone with a bit more action experience. So this film is based in Moscow. Jack has got himself into a bit of a scrape and been arrested. John McClane must go out, get his son, bring him home, not realising that he's actually in the CIA and he's undercover. There is some good action scenes in the film. There's a really good scene involving a rolling van. The helicopter scene at the end of the film is really good. But yeah, there's some good shootouts. The dialogue is bad. The dialogue is bad because you're not given the opportunity to express yourself, you know. For the first part of the film, the first like 20 minutes, half an hour, John is just trailing Jack. He's just walking behind him like a lost dumb puppy. And whenever Jack asks for John's help, he gets the same line. I'm on vacation. You're not on vacation. You're an ass kicker. Help your son. Yeah, this was the first Die Hard film I got the feeling that Bruce Willis really didn't want to be there. He really didn't want to be involved in this film. You got the I don't give a shit attitude. And it's only towards the end of the film where we got some really good action. And they cut out a lot of blood as well. They cut some headshot scenes, digital blood, and there was less blood in this film. Massive shootout and a rolling van, and he still comes out with completely white t-shirt, so to speak, and no grazes on his face or anything. You know, it's like he wasn't even involved in it. So yeah, I mean, this has been re-released now. We've got a 15 certificate, and it is now the harder extremer cut. So it's more watchable now than it was when it first came out. I mean, who the hell said that? Alex Zane. Alex Zane. He's the one who does the Sky movies, isn't he? The Sky Movie Countdown for the Sun. He says the most action-packed Die Hard yet. What? Yeah. No, this hasn't got the magic of Die Hard. This hasn't got the magic of Die Hard 2. Yes, I love Die Hard 2. It's a great sequel. And also the third film with Jeremy Irons, who played a great villain. The villain in this was better in the trailer than he was in the actual film. And it just doesn't cut it. It just doesn't cut it as a Die Hard film. This is what literally killed the franchise. I know they've been talking about restarting it or rebooting it. I don't know if it will ever happen. Now that poor old Bruce Willis has sunk to Nicolas Cage, John Travolta, crap DVD, bottom shelf movies. But hopefully one day there will be a decent reboot. I think they should get the original director to maybe helm it. So yes, there we go. A Good Day to Die Hard. My number 4 most disappointing sequels. Number 3 on my list is a Star Wars film. Many of you will be probably thinking Attack of the Clones, but no. The Phantom Menace. Yes, The Phantom Menace is number 3 on my most disappointing list of sequels. Now, I'm looking at this as a fan of the original 3 films. So when The Phantom Menace came out, we was expecting big things, great storyline, fantastic dialogue, and just a magical Star Wars film. We did get entertaining scenes. We got some great action scenes. Darth Maul, we had a great villain who unfortunately was cut short. See what I did there? Yeah, and we had some good scenes. The pod race was really good. We had some really bad dialogue. Are you an angel? And all that kind of shit, yeah. And we had one of the most unnecessary characters in any Star Wars film, Jar Jar Binks. And as the films progressed through Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, Jar Jar got less screen time because I think George Lucas realised he'd made a mistake. It was just an excuse, I think, to promote CGI, to show you what you could do now, coming off the heels of like Jurassic Park and all the new CGI movies that were coming out. So very unnecessary. Ewan McGregor was a bit wooden in this film. Liam Neeson was good. Natalie Portman kept changing her accent more times than I have had fish and chips. And for the most part, the main storyline was a storyline that no one really cared about. You know, the first trilogy, it was against the forces of darkness. It was against this evil emperor and the empire. And for the new trilogy, they decided to focus it on trade negotiations. No one cares about trade negotiations. So yeah, it hurt the film. The action scenes were good. It looked beautiful. The CGI was fantastic. It just wasn't the sequel that a lot of fans were hoping. And I think a lot of die-hard Star Wars fans came out of that cinema a little bit disappointed, and some were thinking, what the hell have I just watched? But on the most part, it's an enjoyable film. I do go back and rewatch it every now and again, but it's not the Star Wars sequel that everybody was hoping for. Okay, so on to my number 2 of my most disappointing sequels. Again, I don't own this one on physical, so I'm holding up the better film. Speed. Yes. Fantastic film. I saw it again a couple of days ago. Keanu Reeves, Dennis Hopper, Sandra Bullock. A brilliant film about a bus that can't go below 50 miles an hour. So what do you do with a sequel? Well, you get rid of Keanu Reeves for starters, and you give Annie a new love interest in Jason Patric. But what are you going to do? You've done a bus. Where are you going to set it? Set it on a cruise ship, one of the slowest moving machines there is. Yes, Cruise Control. It has a good sound to it. Cruise Control, cruise ship control in it. But it just didn't hit it. It was directed by Jan de Bont, who was responsible for the first film and The Great Twister. But yeah, it just didn't do it. The villain was good. I liked Willem Dafoe as the villain. As, you know, he decided to take over this cruise ship, blow half of it up, and just decide to crash it into another boat and then crash it into like a little seaside town. But it didn't have the magic and the excitement that the first film had. Again, the thing that hurt Speed 2, like in the Mummy Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, was getting rid of a major cast member. Getting rid of Keanu Reeves. I don't know, maybe he was doing one of the Matrix sequels at the time, I can't remember, but it was a bad move. I mean, Jason Patric was okay. There just wasn't that connection between them, So yeah, Speed 2 is my second most disappointing sequel. Okay, so now for my number one most disappointing sequel. And this is a sequel that I had been waiting an eternity for. The first film is in my top 10 list of greatest movies of all time. Some people might not agree with it, but for me, it's exciting, it's action-packed, it's comedic, and it's one of those punch-the-air movies. I bet you can't guess what it is. Independence Day Resurgence, or as I like to call it, Regurgence. Yeah, after so many years of watching the original Independence Day, yes, some of the dialogue is ropey, corny, but it is great dialogue. It fits the film. The cast are fantastic. We have Jeff Goldblum, we have Will Smith, fantastic in the first film. Randy Quaid, I could go on, Bill Pullman, there's loads of people. So what do you do with a sequel? Well, you bring the aliens back to Earth. Bigger this time. Yeah, who'd known that way out there in the first film there was actually a mothership? The mothership that arrived in the first film was actually just like a scout ship. So yeah, there's a much bigger ship, a much bigger fleet that basically sticks onto the Earth. Yeah, what was that about? I don't know. But again, we lose cast members. Will Smith decided not to do Independence Day Resurgence. I think he was doing Suicide Squad at the time. We also lose Randy Quaid. Of course, we can't really have Randy Quaid in the sequel, considering that he died in the first film. Spoiler. But there were also a couple of other cast members that we didn't have in the film. We did have Vivica A. Fox, Will's other half, who kind of like died after 5 minutes. Again, spoiler. Bill Pullman was back as the troubled ex-president, still having nightmares about his encounters with these aliens. We have Jeff Goldblum back and his dad. And it's funny that Julius Levinson actually looks exactly the same, because in the original film they made him up to look old. So now he's just as he is. So he hasn't aged a day in 20 years. But it was great to see Julius back. Brent Spiner is back as well. Although they've kind of given him a love interest in this film. Yeah, the bloke that was in the first film that was probably only in it for like 10 seconds in a scene, they've given Brent Spiner and him kind of like a love connection, you know. Yeah, I don't think that was really needed. I don't think it was really necessary. The film also stars Liam Hemsworth. Yeah, you've got to get a Hemsworth in a film these days. And Jesse T. Asher as well. So we have Will Smith's little kid that was in the first film. We have him as one of the main heroes in this film. Some of the action pieces are bigger. There's a really big destruction scene where the Burj Khalifa crashes into the Tower of London. A lot of action, but it's kind of like retreading the same old thing, you know. We're fighting the aliens, you know, we're taking them down. It's kind of retreading old territory. One thing that was absent from this film was the soundtrack. The original soundtrack is one of my favourite soundtracks of all time, composed by David Arnold, and has one of the most iconic theme tunes ever, you know, along there with like Stargate and Star Wars and Indiana Jones. You instantly recognise that it's an Independence Day soundtrack. This was just a run-of-the-mill average score. It did have the theme in there towards the end of the film, but there was nothing special. There was nothing that made me perk up and, oh, this soundtrack is great. So that was very disappointing in the film. There is another race in this film. The first time we encounter another race, and they come to warn us that these aliens are coming back and they're bigger and badder than before. And of course, the first thing that the Americans do is just blow the shit out of this new alien that comes to help us. But what kind of elaborate ship do they bring with them? You know, is it this like Millennium Falcon looking thing? Does it look like a Star Destroyer? Does it look like the USS Enterprise? Does it look like the USS Sulaco? No, it's a giant snooker ball. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what happened with the design of that. I mean, was someone just playing snooker one night in the production room, and they thought, yeah, that'll make a good looking ship. Yeah, so there we go. It was missing a lot of the elements that the classic film had, and it's a shame because it was an okay film. I mean, this has been in Poundland. That shows, not the 4K, but the Blu-ray has been in Poundland. That shows that it's not a sought-after movie and that it's not an expensive movie and that they just want to shift a load. It's a shame because I was really excited when we were going to get an Independence Day 2 because the first film is classic. The first film is one of the best films of all time, in my opinion. But it is what it is. Whether we get an Independence Day 3, because they did leave the second film open, I don't know. But we can only hope if they do eventually one day, maybe Will Smith will decide to pop back. But that is my #1 most disappointing sequel of all time. Independence Day Regurgence. So I hope you enjoyed this little list. Obviously, a lot of the films are interchangeable for a lot of people. And maybe you have other films that you feel are disappointing that could be in the list. So if you do have those films, stick them down in the comments. I'd like to see what other films, other sequels you believe are really disappointing. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Like it by giving it some thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, comment and share. And I'll see you on the next video. Bye!